The game came out. It was highly praised in the press. We got interviewed by the Wall Street Journal. It got the second highest Metacritic score of all time on Xbox Live, and we sold like 22,000 copies of the game. Yep.
Hey, howdy, hey gamers, Wolfman47 here, and today got another 10 or more or less video for you. So, as we all know, when it comes in the sort of gaming space, there's a lot of AAA games, lots of games that people know, they play it, they're big, there's some multiplayer games that are big, and more often than not, people do often forget that there are some small-time developers as well that do deserve that attention as well. And I've played a lot of these indie games on this channel, and I've even played some that I have not yet done a video on this channel. But I think my first exposure to indie games would have probably been on the Nintendo Wii back in the day, and then on a PlayStation 3 back in the day, most of which unfortunately were exclusives, and therefore I'm not able to play them anymore unless I emulate them and do illegal things and so, which I don't want to do if possible, even though I have done previously on videos. So yeah, and I've been enjoying the indie sort of space when it comes to games for a long time, and I think a lot of them do deserve the attention that they deserve. I mean, one of the biggest ones to ever come out was Five Nights at Freddy's, for goodness sake, and that's become its own big major franchise. just by the fact that so many Let's Players played all the old games, and now it's a big ass franchise. So yeah, and I do give credit to the popular Let's Players out there that do give these indie games a chance, because without them, these games probably wouldn't get as much attention or praise like Five Nights at Freddy's did. So yeah, but anyway, let's talk about 10 of these games. So first up, a bit of a cheat, this one. It is Limbo and Inside. So now, before I go into these games, I should point out that I'm not actually looking at a Wikipedia page. I'm just doing it from memory this time. But I'm reading from a list on my other screen that I've put down for this video. So Limbo and Inside are quite similar. They're both platforming games, sort of like with Limbo being a very strictly 2D game and Inside being a 2.5D game. The difference being that in 2.5D it's 3D visuals, so you get some 3D elements to it, whereas 2D is obviously straight up 2D. They're both made by the same guy or same team, with both of them sort of having very sort of endings that are left ambiguous, but you kind of wonder what actually happened. So I'll start with Limbo first. So in Limbo, you got this character that I think is trying to find this girl. He has to overcome a lot of different obstacles, including a giant spider, a couple of sort of industrial things, and all sorts. And every time he gets killed off or gets thrown in the water, or whatever, it's particularly gruesome. So yeah, and good on them for being very subtle with the sort of violent bits. Not actually showing the blood or everything, but yeah, it's a particularly gruesome game if you get so many game overs in it. And as for Inside, it's much more graphic, because you do actually see what's happening, you do see what's going on, and it's about this guy that's trying to navigate a world where everybody's basically turned into a mindless zombie, and he has to break into this facility to basically get this experiment out of it somehow, or become part of the experiment or whatever. And both games are very interesting. I think I do prefer Inside over Limbo, only because Inside does actually have a pretty darn good soundtrack to it, especially in the sort of later parts of the levels, where things get a little bit intense, a little bit epic, a little bit chaotic and everything. And also they do give you ramp up the violence in that game. And it also has 2 endings as well. And I'm always a big fan of games that do like to explore the idea of having multiple endings, and just let people just be able to explore and find those multiple endings and just come to their own conclusion what they consider canon or not. So yeah, so that's Limbo and Inside. A game that I played sort of during the period of time where I moved into this flat that I live in now is Stardew Valley. So this was one of the first games that I played when I started having a gaming computer, and it's definitely a game that doesn't really require that much, because it's a very nostalgia pixelated game that is one of the easiest games to mod as well, not gonna lie, because as some of you know, I do like modding my games where possible, and just want to keep it as easy and as simple as possible, and I can definitely do that in this game. It's basically trying to sort of dominate the life simulator by making things that little bit more easier. So it's basically meant to look like Harvest Moon, but also have elements of Animal Crossing and other life simulating games as well. With the big difference being that it's endless. It can go on. There's no like end game to it or whatever. It just carries on till the end of time, for as long as you want to play it. But you do get to do all these different activities, get all these different tools to use. Basically manage your own farm, form relationships with people, go into a dungeon quest sort of thing, and it's also one of the few games that regardless of your gender, you can pretty much explore LGBTQIA stuff if you want to, if your character's into that. And as I say, it's one of the easiest games to mod as well if you want to mod your games. I obviously wouldn't recommend doing mods that sort of change the gameplay experience altogether, but Stardew Valley is a lovely game, and it's good fun if you just want a break from the big games out there. And it's kind of like other life simulator games where you can just play it for a little while and then come back to it later on just to see if anything's changed or whatever. So yeah, that's Stardew Valley. Now, a lot of us have been brought up with sort of animated stuff and old cartoons like Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies, Silly Symphonies, and others. And one game that decides to capitalise on that and basically just try and do its own thing is Cuphead. So Cuphead, as the name suggests, you play as a character called Cuphead, and you basically go on to these bizarrely hard and bizarrely difficult levels where you're fighting all sorts of bosses, all sorts of enemies, platforming, and it's basically one of those games that's very unforgiving, but you just can't help but enjoy playing it because of how cute and because of how visually good it looks. Just trying to capture the nostalgia of those old cartoons and so forth. And I do like nostalgia if it's used right and is not used as an excuse for a cash grab. I know for this one it definitely wasn't a cash grab. It was just heavily inspired by those old cartoons / animated stuff. And I really did enjoy it. I didn't get very far in the game in the end, but I really did enjoy it, and I'm glad that it managed to spawn a franchise that includes an animated show on Netflix, and other things as well. So yeah, I'm really happy about that. So a game that I played on PlayStation 3 to begin with, and was part of this film called Indie Game the Movie, which kind of explores the journeys three groups of people have gone through to create their games. And one of the games that they featured in that film was Braid. So Braid is basically Super Mario, but with a bit more depth and layers to it. So this time around, you're having to save this princess, and you play as this character who has to get these puzzle pieces to advance to the next bit, but manage it. But depending on which level you go on, you can use this thing called time, where you can basically reverse things or fast forward things depending on the level. They kind of make things a little bit more interesting. Like, I know there's like one level where every time you move, the world moves with you, and then if you stop, the world suddenly stops, freezes time and everything, which I thought was a very interesting idea, a very interesting concept to use for the platforming genre that I don't think at the time was really used all that well. Like, I know Super Mario games had that time item in one of the games, but this game is actually all about platforming with sort of being able to control time as well. So very interesting, that one. Possibly the game that's like the king when it comes to multiple endings is the Stanley Parable. So this game is a first-person game, not a shooter or anything. You just basically play things from a first-person perspective, and the narrator is there just giving you instructions, telling you what to do and everything. And it's up to you if you want to choose to go down that path or do something completely different. And what I really like about Stanley Parable is that it's pretty much a game where you get to find all sorts of different endings. Like, you can find one ending where it's like the good ending, the bad ending, the obnoxious ending, the over top ending, an ending that has you leave the game and then come back into it. Again, a ending that has the narrator break the fourth wall and launch other games on your computer, although it specifically sort of restricts itself to Minecraft and Portal. Spoilers. And yeah, it's definitely a game that's definitely a good Let's Play game to do if you're one of those people that likes to do videos on your channel of Let's Plays. So it's definitely a good Let's Play one, just exploring all the different endings and so forth, and just seeing how bizarre and crazy it gets and funny and so forth. So yeah, that's the Stanley Parable. If you are familiar with the reality TV show called Wipeout, then this next game you might enjoy. It's Fall Guys. So Fall Guys is a multiplayer game where you get to play as all these different creatures that are basically contestants, and you have to go through all these different obstacle courses and everything. And basically, if you like watching Total Wipeout, Takeshi's Castle, or those sorts of shows, then you'll feel right at home here, because you're basically playing as a character that has to go through different obstacles and so forth. Unfortunately, it's not as hilarious. It's hilarious and stuff, but if you're after a show where basically where contestants could literally sort of embarrass themselves in all sorts of different ways, with obstacles stripping them or whatever, because sometimes people do these things bizarrely without any clothes or whatever. You're not going to get that in Fall Guys. Fall Guys is basically all the characters are together. You do get skins and everything to put on. You basically go through a series of obstacle courses, and everyone gets eliminated depending on how well you do and so forth. And it's just good fun. And I hope to do a Let's Play of that one day with the guys or some other people, but we shall see. I think I have done a Let's Play or a video of it previously, but I didn't actually do it with friends at the time. So yeah, but I hope to do it with friends one day. So everybody loves border control, don't they? No, they don't really. There's this game called Papers, Please. It was originally on Newgrounds to begin with, before becoming its own standalone game, where you can buy it on Steam or whatever. And basically, the general idea is you're at a border control some kind, and you have to let people in, and you have to follow these guidelines, following all the different rules, saying, oh, you can't let such and such in, you can't let these people in, and all that stuff. And you basically can do whatever you like. Let them in, don't let them in. You might get fired, you might get fined, you might get all sorts of weird, crazy things. And it's basically sort of trying to demonstrate how depressing and how difficult that sort of role is. I give credit to the people that do that job and have to put up with so much, because this game perfectly demonstrates how difficult that sort of job can be to a lot of people. So I'm particularly glad that this game does exist, just to sort of describe that this job is not exactly as fun as you might think it is, because things can happen, legal things, laws and everything. So yeah. So another game I don't think I've done this game on its own yet, but I know it has been part of a Humble Choice video that I've done previously, I think, and that is Road 96, about this character that's trying to get from A to B, and he goes on this journey meeting all sorts of different characters, just learning about them and doing all sorts of fun stuff with them. It's a nice game if you'd like the sort of road sort of idea of traveling on the road, meeting all sorts of people along the way. I've seen films sort of explore this idea before, where there's a guy that's going from A to B and they're meeting all sorts of people along the way until they reach their destination, and it's good that we get a game like that as well. So yeah, I like it. Another game that's particularly famous for its soundtrack and just how you play the game is Undertale. I don't think I need to explain much about Undertale, but if in case you don't know what it is, it's a game that just like with Stardew Valley and most indie titles is a pixelated game, and the idea behind it is that you can play it any way you want, but depending on if you kill off characters or don't kill off characters, then there is that element that it will make you feel guilty for doing what you did. And if you get to that infamous point where you do kill off everybody, then you have to face Sans in a very over the top battle, Megalovania or whatever it's called. Yeah, I actually have only played a bit of it, but I have seen many YouTubers play it, and it's kind of one of those games where you can't simply do one playthrough of it, you have to do several playthroughs. And it's also one of those games where doing a sort of series of videos on it, you're going to be there for a while because yes, okay, you could probably finish the game quite easily, but then you have to bear in mind that some people do prefer you playing all the different playthroughs that you can do with it, so it does have that to it, some replayability. Not many indie games do have that replayability when you play them, but it's great that this one does. Now this last game I was, to begin with, very reluctant to add because of the controversy around the developer that created it, as shown in Indie Game the movie, as well as the other controversy behind it. But I'll talk about it anyway because I did think it was okay, and that is Fez. So Fez is another one of those games that's described as a 2D platform, but it kind of follows a similar formula to Super Paper Mario, in which in Super Paper Mario is the only one that has the ability to turn everything into 3D, and you play as this character that gets to turn the world around from a different perspective, and it's kind of like a 3D environment but 2D characters, and you get to turn things from a different perspective. And I thought that was a really cool, really fun idea. I can understand why the guy gave up gaming altogether when he made this, but it doesn't excuse him from his behaviour towards all the different people and publishers that wanted to help him publish the game. Because it's great that you make a game, but when you're showcasing it to people, make sure the game works, obviously. And if a person is publishing the game for you, be nice to them, because they're giving you a big shot here. And okay, they might be putting pressure on you and everything, which I don't agree with. But don't have a go at them, because they want that game to succeed just like you want it to succeed. So yeah, it's definitely a game that had the controversy around that didn't happen, it could have got itself a sequel and whatever, but it ultimately didn't in the end. So it is what it is. And that is just 10 of several indie games that I've played, and I am aware that the last time I did a 10 or more or less video, towards Halloween that is, that I ended up talking about 9, but then redeemed myself by talking about the 10th thing the very next day. So I'm hoping that is all 10 of them. If it isn't, do say in the comments. And also, while you're down there, also let me know what indie games you've played, what you like, what you don't like, whether you played these games I've talked about. These are just 10 of several indie games I've played, but these are the ones that have kind of are kind of very popular. People talk about them a lot, and I still play them today, albeit occasionally. So yeah. So that's what I've got to say about it. But yeah, do give indie games a chance for sure, because they do deserve all the attention that they desperately need. Because it's good to have a break from these games, these bigger AAA titles. So yeah. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you can, please. If you're new to the channel, I do vlogs like this every single Thursday, talking about all sorts of things that are interesting to me, usually stuff in pop culture, but other things as well. And then the rest of the days, Monday and Tuesday, I'll do a gameplay video of a long game, and I just do a series of videos of that long game, and I alternate between 4 games at the moment. Every Wednesday I do a Let's Play video, sometimes of an indie game, but other games as well, but usually an indie game or a game that's very underrated or whatever. So yeah. And the rest of the week I do videos with friends. I do videos with friends, holes, rants of life, reviews, funny shorts, gameplay compilations if I bought a game bundle, and loads more. See you in the next one. Peace to you all. Give indie games a chance. Give game bundles a chance, especially ones where it has lesser known games. So you get to have a bit more variety and basically get more interesting games. And it's kind of like indie films. Indie films don't get as much attention as bigger budget films, but when you really watch those films, you do remember them more than you do with the bigger budget films, and it's the same with these indie games as well. So give them all a chance. Play them, watch them, listen to them, read them, whatever. Just give them all a chance, and you never know, you might be surprised with what you see or hear or whatever. So yeah, alright. Doodles!